There are some wounds in life that weren't caused by an accident, some betrayals that weren't just misunderstandings, some heartbreaks that weren't just a misalignment of hearts. No, some of the damage you've endured was deliberate. It was calculated. It was carried out by people who knew exactly what they were doing. And if you've ever found yourself sitting in the wreckage of someone else's choices, wondering why they did it, wondering if you'll ever recover, wondering if you were just too weak to stop it, let me remind you of something right now. The damage may have been intentional, but so is your healing. They thought they had the final say when they left you broken. They thought they were writing the end of your story when they hurt you. They thought that if they inflicted enough pain, if they pushed you far enough, if they cut deep enough, you would never rise again. But what they didn't understand is that you are not just a product of your pain, you are a vessel of God's power. What they meant to destroy you is what God will use to develop you. What they left for dead, God is about to resurrect. What they tried to shatter, God is about to make stronger than ever before. You see, when damage is intentional, it can feel personal. It can feel like a direct attack on your very identity. The enemy is not after your comfort, he's after your calling. He's not after your happiness, he's after your wholeness. He's not after your present, he's after your future. Because if you ever fully realize who you were, if you ever fully stepped into the person God designed you to be, the very ones who tried to break you would have to watch you rise into something they could never touch. That's why the attack had to be strategic. That's why the enemy had to use familiar faces. That's why the ones who hurt you weren't strangers. They were close enough to know exactly how to wound you. But let me tell you something about intentional damage. It reveals intentional strength. It shows you what you were really made of. It pushes you to levels you never knew you had inside of you. It forces you to find healing in places you never thought you needed. And that healing isn't accidental. It's not a fluke, it's not random. No, your healing is just as intentional as your pain was. There comes a point in your journey where you realize that healing isn't something you wait for, it's something you fight for. It's something you declare over yourself when everything in you feels shattered. It's something you pursue when the voices of your past try to convince you that you're too broken to be whole again. Healing is an intentional decision to rise beyond what was done to you. It's a refusal to let someone else's choices define your entire existence. It's a radical, unshakable belief that God is still in the business of making all things new, including you. That's why healing requires confrontation. You can't heal from what you're not willing to face. You can't grow from what you refuse to acknowledge. Some of us have been trying to move on by pretending the damage didn't happen. We've been trying to outrun the pain by keeping busy, by staying distracted, by convincing ourselves that if we just don't think about it, we'll be okay. But unaddressed pain doesn't disappear. It buries itself deep until it shapes how we see ourselves, how we trust, how we love, how we walk into rooms, how we respond to opportunities. Healing isn't just about forgetting what happened. It's about reclaiming your power from it. It's about saying, yes, it happened. Yes, it hurt. Yes, they meant to break me. But I refuse to live as a victim of their choices. I refuse to let what they did dictate how I move forward. I refuse to let their actions be the reason I shrink back from the life I was created for. You were never meant to stay broken. You were never meant to live in the shadow of what they did to you. Your destiny was written before they ever hurt you. Your purpose was spoken before they ever betrayed you. And if you could see what's ahead of you, you would understand why the enemy fought so hard to break you in the first place. Because he knew that once you healed, once you rose, once you stepped into the fullness of who you are, nothing could stop you. Some of us have been holding on to brokenness because it feels familiar. We've been identifying with our pain because we don't know who we are without it. But God is calling you higher. He is calling you beyond what they did. He is calling you beyond what they said. He is calling you beyond the pain that was inflicted upon you. Your healing is not optional. Your healing is a necessity. It is required for where you're going. It is required for who you are becoming. It is required for the people who are connected to your destiny. There are souls waiting on the other side of your healing. There are testimonies that will be birthed from the very pain you thought would destroy you. There is a version of you stronger, wiser, bolder that will only emerge when you decide that the damage they did does not get to define your story. You see, some of us have been surviving for so long that we don't even know what healing feels like. We have gotten used to living with wounds wide open. We have gotten comfortable carrying the weight of the damage they left behind. But let me remind you of something. Just because you got used to the pain doesn't mean you were meant to live with it. Just because you adapted to brokenness doesn't mean that brokenness is your portion. God never intended for you to just survive. He called you to thrive. He called you to be whole. He called you to be restored. And healing doesn't always feel good at first. It requires you to confront emotions you tried to bury. It forces you to release the anger you thought was protecting you. It makes you question beliefs about yourself that were shaped by people who never truly saw you. But the discomfort of healing is nothing compared to the destiny that awaits you on the other side of it. Some of you have been waiting for an apology that will never come. You have been waiting for closure from people who have already moved on. You have been waiting for the ones who hurt you to recognize what they did and make it right. But can I free you today? Your healing is not in their hands. Your restoration is not dependent on their regret. Your wholeness is not tied to their actions. You do not need their permission to be free. You do not need their acknowledgement to move forward. You do not need them to validate your pain in order for you to heal from it. Because healing is a decision. It is a choice to take back what the enemy tried to steal from you. It is a choice to step into the identity that was always yours before life tried to convince you otherwise. It is a choice to walk in the authority that comes when you realize that no weapon formed against you, not even the ones that actually hit, can prosper. So today, I dare you to be intentional about your healing. I dare you to release what has been holding you hostage. I dare you to see yourself beyond the damage, because the ones who broke you had a plan, but so does God. The ones who tried to destroy you were strategic, but so is your comeback. The ones who meant to leave you shattered did not anticipate that God was about to rebuild you into something even stronger. Your healing is not an accident. It is a divine appointment. It is the next chapter in your story. It is the evidence that nothing, absolutely nothing, can keep you from the purpose God placed inside of you. Rejection has a way of making us question everything about ourselves. It makes us wonder if we were good enough, if we were worthy, if we should have tried harder, if we should have changed who we were just to be accepted. Rejection has a way of making us feel like we weren't chosen, like we were overlooked, like something was wrong with us. But what if I told you that the very thing you thought was rejection was actually protection? What if I told you that the door that closed was never meant for you? What if I told you that the love you lost, the opportunity that slipped away, the friendship that faded, the people who walked away, it was all divine redirection? God does not allow anything to leave your life without a purpose. He does not allow people to dismiss you without a plan. He does not let opportunities pass you by without a greater opportunity waiting on the other side. But when you're in the middle of rejection, it doesn't feel like protection. It doesn't feel like redirection. It feels personal. It feels like abandonment. It feels like something was stolen from you. It makes you want to go back and beg for what you didn't even deserve in the first place. But can I free you today? God saw something you didn't see. He heard conversations you weren't a part of. He knew the hidden motives, the unspoken intentions, the things that were being done behind closed doors that would have crushed you if he had allowed you to stay. That person who left you, they didn't just walk away. God removed them because their presence in your life would have kept you from becoming everything he called you to be. That job that didn't hire you, it wasn't because you weren't capable. It was because God had something bigger, something better, something beyond what you could see. That friendship that ended, it wasn't because you weren't enough. It was because that person's assignment in your life was over. And when an assignment is over, you don't chase after it. You don't beg for it. You don't force it to stay. You release it, because what God has for you is never tied to what he has removed. Some of us have been holding on to the sting of rejection for so long that we don't even realize it has been keeping us stuck. We've been replaying conversations, revisiting memories, questioning where we went wrong, trying to piece together an understanding that God never called us to have. Sometimes understanding is not required for healing. Sometimes the only thing required is faith. Faith that God knows what he's doing. Faith that he is not withholding anything good from you. Faith that if something left, it was never meant to be a part of your future. Faith that if something fell apart, it was because God is about to build something better. God is a master at redirection. He knows how to block what would break you. He knows how to shut doors that would lead to destruction. He knows how to remove people who were sent to distract you. He knows how to orchestrate moments that feel like loss but are actually setting you up for something greater. But if you are too focused on what left, you will miss what's coming. If you are too consumed by what you lost, you will not recognize the blessing that is about to enter your life. Some of us have been so fixated on trying to make sense of the rejection that we have not even realized it was an answered prayer in disguise. You ask God for his best, but you keep trying to hold on to less. You ask God to reveal the truth, but you keep trying to ignore the red flags. You ask God to protect you, but you keep trying to force yourself into spaces that he is pulling you out of. What if the very thing you are mourning was never meant to last? What if God allowed it to fall apart because he knew that if you stayed, it would have cost you more than you could afford to lose? Sometimes rejection is not just protection, it's a rescue. Sometimes God has to remove you before you destroy yourself trying to fit into places that were never meant for you. The reason rejection hurts so much is because we attach our identity to acceptance. We believe that if people love us, we are worthy. If people choose us, we have value. If doors open, we have purpose. But when you really know who you are, when you really know whose you are, you stop seeing rejection as a personal attack. You stop begging people to stay. You stop shrinking yourself to be accepted. You stop seeking validation from people who were never meant to recognize your worth. Because when you know that you are already chosen by God, already loved, already anointed, already called, rejection loses its power over you. Rejection only hurts deeply when we place our worth in the hands of something temporary. People will change, opportunities will shift, relationships will evolve, but God remains the same. He does not change his mind about you. He does not need you to prove yourself to be worthy of his plans. He does not call you based on the approval of others. He does not require the validation of the people who walked away. So why are you waiting for them to affirm what God has already declared over your life? Some of us are still wounded because we've been waiting for closure. We've been waiting for an apology that may never come. We've been waiting for the people who hurt us to come back and fix what they broke. But can I tell you something? You don't need closure when you have clarity, and clarity comes from knowing that rejection was never about your worth, it was about your destination. Clarity comes from realizing that you were never rejected, you were redirected. Clarity comes from understanding that God's no is just as powerful as his yes. Some of you have been trying to re-enter doors that God has permanently closed. You have been trying to rekindle relationships that were only meant for a season. You have been trying to force something to work that God already released you from. And that's why you feel stuck. That's why you feel like you're fighting against something that just won't move. Because you are trying to revive what God has already let die. And every time you go back, every time you settle, every time you compromise, you delay what God has for you. You push back the blessing that was waiting for you on the other side of the rejection. Rejection is painful, but it is not the end of your story. It is a setup for something greater. It is an indication that God's plans are bigger than your own. It is a sign that you are being positioned, not punished. But you have to stop seeing rejection as failure. You have to stop internalizing it as proof that you are not enough. You have to stop believing that if they didn't choose you, you weren't worthy of being chosen. Because the truth is, if they walked away, they were never meant to go where God is taking you. If the door closed, it was not your door. If the relationship ended, it was not your foundation. You cannot keep questioning God's protection just because it came wrapped in pain. You cannot keep running back to what is familiar just because it is comfortable. You cannot keep settling for less just because waiting for better requires faith. You have to trust that if it was removed, it was never meant to be permanent. You have to believe that if God allowed it to leave, it was because he was making room for something that was going to bless you in ways you never imagined. You have to know that what feels like loss right now is going to look like deliverance in hindsight. And when you finally let go, when you finally release what was never yours to hold on to, when you finally stop trying to force what was never meant to fit, you will realize that what God has for you was worth every rejection, every tear, every unanswered question, because nothing God removes ever compares to what he replaces it with. Nothing you lost will ever be greater than what is coming. Nothing that rejected you will ever be more valuable than what is about to embrace you. Pain has a way of making you question everything. It makes you wonder why you had to go through what you did, why you had to endure what you never asked for, why life seems to keep throwing battles at you that you never signed up for. Pain has a way of making you feel like you are just a casualty in the war of life, like you were dealt an unfair hand, like somehow you were chosen to suffer while others seem to glide through with ease. But I need you to hear me today. Your pain is not pointless. It is not just a random series of unfortunate events. It is not the thing that disqualifies you. It is the very thing that proves purpose still lives inside of you. The enemy doesn't attack what isn't a threat. The enemy doesn't fight against something that isn't valuable. The enemy doesn't come after people who have nothing inside of them. If you are feeling the weight of your struggle, if you are feeling like you have been under relentless attack, if you are feeling like life has been trying to take you out at every turn, it is not because you are weak, it is because you are carrying something powerful. The very fact that you have been through what you have been through is evidence that there is something inside of you that hell is afraid of. It is proof that your purpose is still alive, that your destiny is still calling, that God still has a plan for you that the enemy is desperate to keep you from walking into. Pain is often the greatest confirmation of purpose. When Jesus was on the cross, it wasn't because he had done something wrong, it was because he was fulfilling something right. His pain was tied to his purpose. His suffering was the evidence of what he was about to bring forth. And if Jesus himself had to endure suffering to step into the fullness of his purpose, why do we think that our pain means we are disqualified? Why do we assume that just because we have suffered, we are no longer useful? Why do we believe that because we have been broken, we can no longer be effective? The enemy has been trying to make you believe that your pain is a sign that you are losing, when in reality, it is the greatest proof that you are still in the fight. The fact that you are still here, despite everything that was meant to break you, is proof that purpose is not finished with you. The fact that you are still breathing, still pushing, still pressing forward, even when you feel like giving up, is evidence that God has not taken his hand off your life. If you had no purpose, the enemy wouldn't bother with you. If there was nothing left for you, life wouldn't still be trying to shape you. If God was finished with you, the enemy would not waste his time attacking you. You are still here because there is more inside of you. You are still here because there is something that God has placed in you that cannot be destroyed. You are still here because purpose has been woven into your very being, and no amount of pain, no amount of betrayal, no amount of rejection can take that away from you. Some of us have been so focused on our pain that we have forgotten to ask what it is trying to produce. Some of us have been so consumed with the suffering that we have not stopped to realize that every single thing we have been through is shaping us into the person we were always meant to be. Purpose is not found in comfort. It is not developed in ease. It is not built in the absence of struggle. Purpose is forged in the fire of pain. It is refined through adversity. It is strengthened through the very things that were meant to destroy you. Every wound, every scar, every tear is a part of the blueprint that is shaping you into the vessel God is calling you to be. You cannot carry purpose without first carrying pain. You cannot walk into your calling without first surviving the crushing. You cannot step into the fullness of who you are meant to be without first going through the breaking that prepares you for it. But the breaking is not the end of you. The breaking is the beginning. The breaking is where purpose starts to be revealed. The breaking is where God begins to strip away everything that is not aligned with where he is taking you. The breaking is where the old you dies so that the new you can emerge. Some of you have been crying over things that were never meant to last. You have been mourning situations that God allowed to fall apart because he knew they were not a part of your future. You have been grieving over people who left, over opportunities that didn't work out, over doors that closed. But what if the pain you are feeling is not a sign that you lost something, but a sign that you are being positioned for something greater? What if the breaking you are experiencing is actually the birthing of something new? What if the pain that you thought was punishment is actually preparation? When a seed is planted, it has to be buried first. It has to be placed in the dirt. It has to be covered in darkness. It has to go through a process that makes it look like nothing is happening. And some of you feel like you have been buried. You feel like life has placed you in a dark place. You feel like you have been hidden, like you have been forgotten, like nothing is moving, like nothing is working. But can I tell you something? You have not been buried. You have been planted. And what happens when something is planted? It begins to take root. It begins to grow. It begins to push through the very dirt that was meant to cover it. It begins to rise. Your pain is not proof that God has abandoned you. It is proof that something is growing inside of you. It is proof that something is shifting. It is proof that transformation is taking place. The enemy has been trying to convince you that your pain is a death sentence, but I need you to hear me today. It is not death. It is labor. It is the birthing of something greater. It is the pushing of something new. It is the stretching that is making room for the purpose that has been inside of you all along. Pain has a way of exposing what is inside of you. It reveals what you are truly made of. It shows you strengths you didn't know you had. It forces you to tap into resilience that you didn't even realize was there. Some of the greatest things you will ever produce in this life will come from the very pain that tried to break you. Some of the most powerful parts of your story will be birthed from the very suffering you thought you would never survive. Some of the most incredible things God will do through you will be a direct result of the things you once begged him to take away. The enemy thought that if he hurt you enough, you would give up. He thought that if he broke you enough, you would quit. He thought that if he threw enough battles at you, you would walk away from your calling. But what he didn't realize is that all he did was push you closer to your purpose. All he did was ignite a fire in you that cannot be put out. All he did was cause you to discover a strength that cannot be shaken. The enemy wanted your pain to make you bitter, but God is going to use it to make you better. The enemy wanted your suffering to silence you, but God is going to use it to amplify your voice. The enemy wanted your wounds to make you weak, but God is about to use them as the very thing that makes you strong. You may not see it now, but one day you will look back and realize that every tear, every hardship, every battle was leading you to something greater. One day you will understand that the pain you endured was not in vain. One day you will recognize that what was meant to destroy you actually developed you. One day you will see that the very thing that caused you the most pain was the thing that pushed you into the greatest version of yourself. There are moments in life when you don't just feel hurt, you feel shattered. When you don't just feel disappointed, you feel destroyed. When life doesn't just throw a curveball, it hits you with something so heavy, so unexpected, so painful that you wonder if you'll ever recover. There are wounds that don't just sting for a moment, but stay with you, shaping how you see yourself, how you move through the world, how you trust, how you love, how you dream. There are seasons that leave you so broken that you start to wonder if you will ever be whole again. But can I tell you something today? What broke you is the very thing God is going to use to build you. What you thought was the end of you is about to become the foundation of your greatest strength. What you thought was your downfall is about to be the very thing that elevates you. The enemy thought that if he hit you hard enough, you would stay down. He thought that if he stripped enough away from you, you would never rise again. He thought that if he could break your heart, break your confidence, break your spirit, break your dreams, you would give up. But what the enemy did not calculate, what he did not anticipate, what he could never understand is that the breaking was not your destruction, it was your transformation. The breaking was not the end of your story, it was the beginning of something new. The breaking was not God punishing you, it was God preparing you for a level you didn't even know you were called to. If you look through the pages of the Bible, you will see a pattern. God never uses anyone greatly without first allowing them to go through a breaking process. Before David became king, he had to endure betrayal, battles, and seasons of hiding. Before Joseph stepped into his destiny, he had to be rejected, sold into slavery, thrown into prison, and falsely accused. Before Moses led the Israelites, he had to go through a wilderness season that stripped him of everything he thought he knew about himself. The breaking is always a part of the building. The struggle is always a part of the preparation. The breaking down is what makes room for the breakthrough. The enemy has been trying to convince you that what broke you was meant to leave you in pieces. He has been trying to convince you that what happened to you is the end of your story. He has been whispering lies in your ear, telling you that you are too damaged, too broken, too wounded to ever be useful again. But I came to tell you today that the very thing that was sent to break you is the very thing that God is going to use to build you into something greater. The enemy didn't realize that in breaking you, he was actually setting you up for a rebuilding that is stronger, more powerful, and more unstoppable than ever before. You see, when something is broken in God's hands, it doesn't lose its value, it multiplies. When Jesus took the loaves and the fish to feed the 5,000, what did he do? He broke them. And in the breaking, they became more than enough. In the breaking, they were multiplied. In the breaking, what seemed like it wasn't enough became something that could feed the multitudes. Some of you are looking at your brokenness and thinking it makes you useless, think it makes you less than, thinking it disqualifies you. But God is saying, I am about to multiply what was broken. I am about to take what was shattered and use it for something greater than you ever imagined. I am about to take what was left in pieces and turn it into a... But you have to stop seeing your brokenness as the end of you. You have to stop believing that because life has hit you hard, you no longer have purpose. Some of you have been sitting in your pain for so long that you have mistaken it for your identity. You have been broken for so long that you don't even remember what it feels like to be whole. You have been disappointed for so long that you have stopped expecting good things to come your way. But God did not allow the breaking to leave you in despair. He allowed it so that he could take you deeper, so that he could stretch you wider, so that he could build you higher. Sometimes the breaking has to happen because God is trying to remove everything that cannot go with you into your next season. Sometimes he has to strip away the relationships that were holding you back. Sometimes he has to break the patterns that were keeping you stuck. Sometimes he has to crush the parts of you that were tied to things he never meant for you to carry. And in the moment, it feels painful. It feels like loss. It feels unfair. But what you don't see is that every piece of you that was broken is making room for something greater. Every part of you that was shattered is being rebuilt into something stronger. Every moment of pain is positioning you for something that is going to make sense in hindsight. The enemy wants you to believe that brokenness is your final destination. He wants you to settle in your pain. He wants you to believe that you are permanently damaged. He wants you to believe that what happened to you is bigger than what God can do through you. But if you could see yourself the way God sees you, you would understand that what was broken is not wasted. What was taken is not the end of your story. The traumas are food. The traumas are survival. What was lost is about to be restored in a way that only God can restore it. Some of you have been sitting in the rubble of what used to be, grieving over what fell apart, crying over what didn't last, questioning why it had to happen this way. But what if I told you that the very thing that you thought was your downfall is about to be the foundation of your greatest comeback? What if I told you that the pain that almost took you out is about to be the very thing that launches you into your destiny? What if I told you that the people who walked away were not your loss, but your protection? That the things you thought were setbacks were actually set-ups? That the breaking was not to destroy you, but to release you into something you wouldn't have stepped into otherwise? There is something powerful about a person who has been broken and survived. There is something unstoppable about someone who has been through hell and still decided to get back up. There is something dangerous to the kingdom of darkness about a person who has seen the worst life has to offer and still decided to keep trusting God. When you rise from the very thing that was meant to destroy you, you become a testimony that the enemy cannot erase. You become a walking reminder that no matter what life throws your way, God's hand is still on you. You become living proof that what was meant to break you actually built you into someone that cannot be shaken. The enemy was hoping you would stay down. He was hoping you would give up. He was hoping that the weight of your past, the sting of your failures, the wounds of your disappointments would be enough to make you quit. But he underestimated the power of God in you. He underestimated the resilience in your spirit. He underestimated the anointing that was placed on your life before you ever took your first breath. He underestimated the purpose that is so deeply rooted in you that no amount of breaking could erase it. You may not see it now, but one day you will look back and realize that what was meant to destroy you actually developed you. One day you will understand that the moments you thought were breaking you were actually the moments that were making you. One day you will look at your scars and realize that they are not reminders of pain, but proof that you survive. One day you will recognize that the breaking was not the end of you, it was the making of you. There's something about the aftermath of pain that makes you question if you will ever rise again. There's something about going through the fire that makes you wonder if you'll ever come out whole. There's something about surviving what should have destroyed you that makes you wonder if you even have enough left in you to keep going. But I need you to understand something today. You are not rising in spite of what you've been through. You are rising because of it. The very thing that tried to take you out is the same thing that is going to push you into the greatest version of yourself. The very storm that came to drown you is the same storm that is going to carry you into your next season. The very pain that tried to break you is the same pain that is about to build you into something that cannot be shaken. The enemy wanted you to believe that the damage was permanent. He wanted you to believe that the heartbreak was final. He wanted you to believe that the trauma would keep you stuck forever. But what he didn't realize is that every wound, every scar, every battle you have faced has been shaping you into someone who cannot be broken. Every tear you have cried has been watering the very thing that is about to grow in you. Every time you thought you had reached your limit, God was stretching you into a version of yourself that is stronger, wiser, more powerful than you ever imagined. The damage didn't disqualify you, it positioned you, it prepared you, it developed you in ways that comfort never could. If you had never been wounded, you wouldn't have discovered your capacity to heal. If you had never been rejected, you wouldn't have realized your worth. If you had never been abandoned, you wouldn't have learned how to stand on your own. If you had never been broken, you wouldn't have seen how God can take what is shattered and turn it into something unbreakable. You are not the same person you were before the storm. You are not the same person you were before the betrayal, before the loss, before the disappointment. You have been refined in the fire. You have been strengthened in the struggle. You have been stretched in the suffering. And now what once threatened to destroy you is about to be the very thing that lifts. Some of you have been looking at your past like it is something to be ashamed of. You have been trying to hide your wounds, trying to erase your mistakes, trying to pretend like you haven't been through what you've been through. But what if I told you that the very thing you thought would keep you bound is the very thing God is about to use to set you free? What if I told you that your testimony is wrapped in the things you once tried to forget? That your power is hidden in the places where you once felt weak? That your story is not just about survival, but about transformation? The enemy thought he could use your pain to silence you, but what he didn't realize is that your pain has given you a voice. Your wounds have given you wisdom. Your struggles. You're not rising because life has been easy. You're rising because life tried to break you and you refused to stay down. You are rising because you learned how to fight in the dark places. You are rising because you discovered a power in you that no amount of adversity could take away. You are rising because every time the enemy hit you, God restored you. Every time you lost something, God replaced it with something greater. Every time you were knocked down, God gave you the strength to get back up. Some of you have been walking around believing that the damage has made you less valuable, that because you have been through so much, you are somehow unworthy of the blessings that God has in store for you. But can I tell you something? The most powerful people are not the ones who have never been hurt. The most powerful people are the ones who have been through the fire and come out on the other side carrying something they never had before. The ones who have seen the worst life has to offer and still decided to keep going. The ones who have been knocked down so many times that they have learned how to rise with authority, with confidence, with boldness. You don't become powerful by avoiding pain. You become powerful by overcoming it. Some of the greatest warriors in history were not born strong. They became strong because they went through battles that forced them to grow. They became strong because they endured things that should have destroyed them. They became strong because they faced struggles that built something inside of them that nothing could shake. You are not rising because the journey has been easy. You are rising because you have faced challenges that stretched you into someone you never thought you could be. You are rising because you have discovered that there is more in you than you ever realized. You are rising because even when you felt like giving up, something inside of you refused to let go. The enemy wanted you to believe that the damage meant you were finished, that because life has been hard, you no longer have purpose, that because you have made mistakes, you no longer have a future. But what the enemy didn't count on was that the damage was actually a setup, that everything that tried to break you was actually working together to build you, that every setback was positioning you for a comeback, that every hardship was preparing you for something greater. You are standing in the middle of a testimony that is still unfolding. You are walking through a story that is still being written. The damage may have knocked you down, but it did not take you out. The storm may have shaken you, but it did not break you. The battle may have been fierce, but you are still here. And because you are still here, that means purpose is still alive inside of you. That means there is still more for you to do. That means there is still a calling on your life that no amount of damage can erase. You may not feel strong right now, but strength is not about how you feel. Strength is about what you choose to do even when you feel weak. Strength is about deciding to rise even when you have every reason to stay down. Strength is about believing that what was meant to destroy you is actually going to be the thing that elevates you. The fact that you are still here means that God is not finished with you. The fact that you are still breathing means that your story is not over. The fact that you have survived everything that tried to take you out means that you are walking into a new level of power, a new level of purpose, a new level of anointing. You are not rising despite the damage, you are rising because of it. The very thing that was meant to break you is the very thing that is making you stronger. The very pain that tried to hold you back is the very thing that is pushing you forward. The very thing you thought would be your downfall is the very thing that is becoming your greatest testimony. The enemy thought the damage would stop you, but what he didn't know was that it was only making you more powerful. What he didn't know was that it was only making you more unstoppable. What he didn't know was that it was only setting you up for something greater.